Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. So I did a flirt workshop with a group of men and women last night, and it was awesome. Okay, so I went over my magic secret ingredients to flirting, and we broke out into Zoom room mock dates, and we had a lot of fun. And at the end, during the Q&A section, a woman asked me about a scenario where she didn't understand what happened. So she was talking to a man at a dance party, and they were having a great conversation. I mean, things were flowing and they were laughing, and she felt she was really having a lot of chemistry with this guy. And then in the midst of the conversation, he holds his hand out and asked her to dance. And she paused and looked at him and said straight away, "Oh, no, thank you. I just prefer to talk." And slowly she saw that he was losing interest, and then he walked away. And she was really perplexed. And she asked me, she didn't understand what happened. I mean, they were having such a great conversation, and then he just dropped her. Now, I don't know her at all. I just met her at the workshop, and I don't work with this woman, but I didn't have to know. I didn't have to know that she completely shut the door on him. The man wanted to offer something, his hand, a dance, to move with her. And which she didn't accept it. And she just said, "No, I don't want to do this." I equate it back to the caveman days. And look, we all are kind of, coming from that place of caveman days where, I mean, it was like the man was coming home from going hunting all day for his woman, and he came to the doorway with this big piece of meat, offering it to her. And she opens the door and says, "No, thank you. I already have one in the fridge." Boom, slams the door. But then there's the woman's side. Okay. And you all know I work with both men and women, and I always see the other side. And so after talking about the man's piece, I then asked her how comfortable she was being in her body and letting a man kind of be close to her. And that perhaps it was easier to be in the comfort of her home, which was her head and her conversations, that maybe, just maybe, it was scary for her to lead with her body. And she got really quiet and said, "Oh, you're spot on. That is exactly what I was feeling. I guess I was scared." So for her, receiving in that essence was hard. The truth is that both genders have responsibility in how the masculine and the feminine play out. Men need to and desire to lead in his masculine, and we women crave that. We want to be led. We want to be taken care of. We want to feel safe and secure. But both genders, sometimes men and women, don't know how to allow that to happen, for the masculine to lead and the feminine to receive. So with me today is someone really special. He knows how to teach men, definitely how to lead with their masculine. And I, of course, love teaching women how to receive it. So we're kind of a good match, I'll just say. He's a coach for men in relationship, former Silicon Valley executive, founder of the tech company that he eventually sold, and the author of 2 books, including a recent published The Masculine in Relationship. He specializes in nice guys who want to find their personal power. His teachings combine deep embodiment work with the framework of the masculine blueprint from the book. And I love that because he really gives actionables. It's not just, theory, which you know me by now, I always am preaching that because that's where you change. His teachings are based on 12 years as a student and creator in the realm of masculine, feminine dynamic, as well as principles he pulls from a variety of fields: psychology, martial arts, tango, which I love, by the way, meditation, and get ready, BDSM. Welcome, GS Youngblood. Are you there?
Yes. Good morning, Kimmy. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, hello. Okay, just saying your name, it's kind of mysterious. Like, is there, can we just start there? Like, what is the story behind your name? Like, why GS?
Those are my first two initials. There's no mystery to it.
Okay, but you never go by the actual name, you just go by the initials?
Yeah, my friends call me Gregory.
Oh my God, you revealed your name.
I know.
No, well, it's funny because names are really important. And I recently, a lot of people have been asking me because I used to go by Kim and then I just switched to Kimberly and now I'm Kimmy.
Mhm.
And the truth is why I ended up with Kimmy and now I want everyone to call me that is I realized that the people who I love and the people who are near and dear to me always end up calling me Kimmy.
Mm,
And there's such a like personal kind of connection for me with that.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, what's in a name, right?
Yeah, well, now you can feel the love from everybody that calls you Kimmy.
Exactly,
Mhm.
GS. Okay. So I would love to hear more about you. Like how, I mean, what is your backstory? How did you become a masculine leader yourself? Were you always yourself that way or?
Well, I wish I could say that. And as I often say, I came about it the hard way. And I was married for 10 years, and that
Hmm.
was a marriage that ended about 10 years ago. And I was married to a very strong woman, and I didn't know how to be with that, even though I was very attracted to her competence and her
Hmm.
confidence. When things get a little tougher, you start having children, everybody's working, life gets a little more stressful. You've been together for a while. It can actually be very hard if you're with a woman like that and really don't know how to be with that kind of feminine power. If you don't bring
Hmm.
your own masculine power to the equation, and I hate to say it, but that was where I ended up. By the end of that marriage, I was just really just trying to stay away from her anger and keep the peace. And that actually pushed her away even farther. And at the end, her heart and her body were closed to me, and I was baffled, and it was very hurtful and challenging. But that was the fuel that really propelled me to want to find a different way to be in relationship. And so it was over the last, really now by about 12 years of men's work in the field of authentic relating, and then being in a primary relationship for about 7 of those years with a very strong and feminine woman, and seeing in the laboratory of real life and real relationship what works and what doesn't, what opens her and what doesn't. Um, and really, that was the path that got me to a point where I said, I could actually start to write about this. And I took a lot of notes every day on dynamics that I observed in my own relationship and those of friends. And at some point, I had enough material, and I organized it into the 3-part blueprint that I shared with you.
Hmm.
And that was where the book was born. And so I've been, and then in parallel to that, coaching men for a few years now. So that was really the journey that took me to where I am today.
Wow, that's a I wanted to ask you about that because I get this question a lot. It's for strong women. They get very frustrated because they're like, "Oh, men just what is it? They don't like confident women. They just want me to be like dumb and like a damsel in distress." And
Right.
like, can you speak to that? Like, because I know that's not true, but from a man's standpoint, because especially you were married to somebody who was, kind of a different kind of assertiveness than someone now.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the subtitle of the book because it allows me to answer your question. So,
Oh, perfect. We didn't
so
plan that either. I
the,
love it.
the book is called The Masculine in Relationship, which you already mentioned,
Yeah.
and the subtitle is a blueprint for inspiring the trust, lust, and devotion of a strong woman. And that's really what this is about. And it's really the joke, kind of the inside joke of the whole thing, is that every woman is a strong woman these days, for the most part, right?
Right, right.
And so it's really a book for any guy with any woman, for the most part. And um, I wanted to really have men learn from the mistakes that I made over the years. Of course it's an insult to expect a woman to be docile and to defer in the relationship. But there are ways of being that a man can bring, and it's kind of under the umbrella of that term masculine leadership. There are
Hmm.
qualities that we can bring to the table where a strong woman, a strong, capable, confident woman naturally wants to relax into her own feminine energy, naturally wants to allow you to lead her. It's a choice by her to allow. It's not, it's not compulsion. It's an invitation for you to follow my lead. And if you feel safe with me, if you trust me, then you may choose to relax into my lead. So what I tell men is it's not about being in charge. It's not about expecting her to turn docile and just do whatever you say. It's about learning the skills of masculine leadership, bringing it to the table as an invite to her. And in many cases, in certain situations, she may naturally relax back into her feminine energy. And what
Mhm.
I've found is for a man that could do that, you become, I mean, absent other factors, and assuming some other factors as well, a man who can bring these qualities becomes uniquely attractive to his woman.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really true, and I think that, thinking every woman that I talk to, no matter how strong she is, I mean, CEO of a company, a celebrity in her own right, or
Mhm.
whatever it is, they all say the same thing. I'm just so tired. I'm tired of
Mm.
doing it all. What
Yeah,
where is the man who can just step up and sweep me off my feet and do the planning and provide for me for once?
yeah.
But, I love using the metaphor of the dance, and I love that you have, like, the tango, experience in
Mhm.
you, and the example that I used in the beginning of the podcast is there really is a dance between men and women. Like, I don't believe it's just the man's piece. I believe there's a woman's piece as well.
Mhm.
But I was gonna ask you, what about a man feeling like he is a leader is so important in a relationship or even on a date?
So I just want to make sure I understand the question. Like, what's so important about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Because especially in this day and age, I think the roles are getting kind of murky, right? And well, seemingly so. They're women are getting stronger in the workforce,
Right.
right? And feeling like, well, she doesn't need a man for that anymore.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. So what's the
right.
point of a man at all?
What's the point of a man? Like, what do we need him for? I mean,
uh,
sex for sure.
yes. Need the penis.
We need
Yes.
the penis. That is definitely important. Although,
Or not.
or not. I mean,
Yeah. Or not.
nowadays there's other things. So
Yeah.
it's like, why is it so important for a woman to allow a man to feel in his masculine and for a man to feel that way still in this day and age?
Yeah, well, we have to distinguish, and I think everybody gets this, but I'll say it anyway.
Yeah.
We have to distinguish between the working world and intimacy. These are very different. Anybody who tries to bring the skills of one into the other
Hmm.
is, is often set up for failure. And men have long gotten ourselves in trouble by bringing our just like this pure logic and analytical approach to an intimate connection. Like
Yeah.
the two don't necessarily mix. Well, now that women are in the working world, the same thing applies. If you come into the relationship and you're applying that masculine energy, if I'm a man who wants to identify with my masculine energy, we don't have polarity. Like it's basically two people in their masculine energy,
Yeah.
and that's going to make for interesting conversation. We'll talk about all the cool places we traveled and what we did in our career. And
Mm.
I can speak for me. At the end of the date, I'm not going to be attracted in most cases. And for me, the woman can be beautiful. She can be smart. And if I don't feel her to have at least the capacity to go into that relaxed, feminine, radiant energy, I'm not going to be interested. And so, just speaking from my own experience, I think it's important to have that polarity on date. Now, you could flip it. I mean, the guy could be more in sort of an expressive, flowy, feminine energy, and she could be in her masculine. But I tend to speak to more of the mainstream where the man wants to be masculine identified. And in that moment of
Mm.
intimacy, she wants to be feminine identified. So you kind of need it for that juice. And I think that's where people get put into the friend zone.
Yeah.
Men get put into the friend zone because they're not bringing any of that quality. They're trying to be nice and safe, and boom, you're in the friend zone. It's counterintuitive, but it's still pretty much true. And I think the same can apply for women, although I think you're much more qualified to talk about this. But if you are just telling me about all the cool things you've accomplished in your career, and it's all very sort of factual and masculine, I'm going to probably put you in the friend zone.
100%. That's
Yeah.
exactly the case because women don't understand sometimes the difference between being aggressive and assertive versus, being
Mhm.
in the feminine and receiving mode. Like there was a woman I was working with. I often go into Bumble profiles and help them with their conversations, and I see a lot. Oh my gosh, do I see a lot? And so she didn't understand why this guy wasn't asking her out. And she's like, Kim, how do I get this guy to ask me out? And I was looking at the conversational. First of all, it was very transactional. Like I might as well have been reading a LinkedIn exchange, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, and so it was really dry and boring and firing questions and factual. And what I was saying, at the end, she's like, "Can I just ask him out?" She would say, "Can I just let him know I have a really busy schedule and I want him to know that I'm available Friday and Friday's coming up. And can I just tell him that?" I'm like, "No, you absolutely cannot." But you can say, because you haven't talked yet, that I wonder what your voice sounds like.
Hmm. Yeah.
And play, let him lead, but you got to drop the hanky. And so that's the difference, between crumpling up the handkerchief and throwing it at him and just dropping it. And so I don't know, could you speak a little as a man and also helping men and get into their masculine, how they can like take that lead?
Hmm. Yeah, I like where you're going. And I'll before I start, I'll say one thing about the languaging. There's no have to here. It's,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying this to you. I'm more saying this to people and how
Right,
they
right,
think.
right.
But if you want to induce a quality in the other person, then these are recommended ways to be. I think that's the question, because I think, well, I'll just leave it at that. So how, I think the question underlying what you asked me is, how can a woman sort of evoke this more
Mhm.
directive energy in the man? And
Yeah.
um, I like where you're going, about I'd like to see what you look like, or she can just share what's true for her, which is like, oh, wow, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I'm really enjoying the connection I'm building here,
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I mean. I don't teach women, and I don't pretend to be an expert on women. But if asked, a pure expression of your heart is the best way to get what you want. Not blame, not shame, not trying to take charge. It's a pure expression of your heart. And so even in the dating context, it's sort of as I suggested. Now, in a relationship context, like if you and I are in a relationship,
Hmm.
um, it could be like we're on our third date, and I say, well, what do you want to do? I think the woman is. I think an artful way to say is, I would really love to just relax back into your direction, and I'd love you to choose, and I'll follow.
Yeah.
I'll follow where you lead. That's a way. That's not her shaming him of like, why don't you just figure it out? Aren't you the man? That's total shaming.
I love that.
But to say, hey, I'd love for you to figure it out, and I'll follow your lead, and it's an invitation. He's gonna. Most men won't be, hurt by that. They'll want to step up. Like we guys, we want to do it right. That's how we're built. So
Yeah.
he's going to want to step up and then fulfill that desire. And again, she just gave, a pure expression of her desire of what was true for her inside.
I love that. And I like the word that you use as invitation. I think that's something that is really tangible that people can think about is you're inviting a guy into your world. And another thing that you did with that phrase where you said, I would love to, is that you're coming from your emotions, like something that you would love to happen. And then you're inviting the guy to do it.
Yeah.
And that combination is so powerful because, again, a lot of times that's what's missed is that we don't talk in our feeling base. We're talking too much about like directives and fact base.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what loses the charm, the chemistry, the pull, the connection. I mean, and which is what we're all longing for, but we're shutting the door on that when we keep it at that surface directive level.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, it's true for both of us.
Yes.
If you can't, one of my closest friends, his woman gets the most mad at him when she can't feel him, and he thinks he's saying all the right things, and
Hmm.
she's like, I can't feel you. And so I coach this a lot with men. I literally had 3 sessions this morning, and 2 of them were me coaching the man to really connect his voice to his heart when he's expressing something. And it makes all the difference to the feminine, I found. And same thing for you guys. Like, as I already said, I don't want to date a woman who's, you know, like just all factual. It's really not attractive. And I want to feel your heart, and I want to feel your expressiveness, like the
Yeah.
That's really what lights me up. I know that.
Well, I mean, actually, if you think about it, and this is just science based, is that, a woman's brain has more capacity and we like our language is more in emotion,
Hmm.
right? And that there's been tons of studies on that. And again, that goes back to like how we were even formed, and then men are more directive, right? And so I think that's why men are attracted to us because you don't normally have that, like you can talk to your buddies about just, the game and shooting the shit and all that stuff. That's based in fact. But I think what's so powerful about a woman is that we help you tap into that. And if we are not there, then yeah, we're just another buddy.
Right. Yeah. Masculine leadership has a lot to do with setting direction, clarity, decisiveness. I mean, those are some of the qualities of masculine leadership.
Hmm.
For me, feminine leadership, and this is just me. I'm not dictating that it should be this way for anybody, but feminine leadership is really, you guys are the steward and the vanguard of the connection between us. You guys are biologically built to sense if the connection is strong and then to reflect back when it's not.
Yeah.
And it's because we're a little more dense. We don't always catch it. And so you can be the vanguard for that and make sure that we are tuned into the connection as well. And like, that's a juicy relationship right there. Like those are two different energies that two people can bring. And then you've got a really juicy relationship.
Can we go back to the dense part? No,
Well,
because
yes.
yes, and I love you, men, and it's like it's the benefit and the challenge all in one for us women because we're very complex and we think in complexity, and so we think you think like us,
Oh my gosh. Yes, we do.
right?
We both do that. We think the other is just like us. And we're like, why the, uh, okay, I'll say, why the heck?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
this person
exactly.
acting this way. Yes, you're so spot on.
Yeah, and so the dense part, I just wanna highlight that, and it comes to, like, flirting, it comes to being in a relationship. You know, we need to send smoke signals out that are amplified times 10 for you to get it. And women will think that they are doing it, but maybe it's at a 2, on the scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah.
and then they get mad at the man because he didn't get it.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that dense part. Like, can you speak? Can you speak to that? Like, what can we do as women to help you with that?
Send them to a good men's coach.
Yeah, I'll work on the women, you work on the men, I think, and then we'll bring them back together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, well, this is tough because it is biological in nature.
Mhm.
You can invite us into our best self. I think I gave an example earlier about, hey,
Yep.
why don't you choose? I'd love for you to choose. That would feel good. You can reflect back to us when we're not getting it.
Ah,
Like I'm kind of more assuming more people who are in some form of relationship, not just sort of first dates or bumble texting. But if you're in a relationship and we're just dense, which we inevitably will be, showing us the pain of that, without blaming and saying we're stupid and
mhm.
all this shaming, but just like, ouch, like when I talked about my mother and then and the sickness that she's going through, and then you change the subject, like, ouch, that hurt. Like that's you sharing with me without calling me a caveman idiot or shaming me or
Yes.
telling me you always do this. You don't even know me. You don't go into any of that shaming stuff. You said ouch. And I think, ouch as a sort of a symbol for all kinds of emotional expression is a really powerful way for women to call forth our best selves. And so without shaming us, you can share the impact of our denseness. I think that's the best way.
That's awesome, and it's so, synonymous with what I teach women to do, like, it goes back to the context of how we feel. It's not about blaming the other person or using you messages. It's like, I felt this way when this happened. Did you know that? And then what I think is important after the expression of it is to see what your partner does with it. And this goes for both, like, does he then like listen, does he, and then on top of it, do you ask for what you need, because that's the other dense part, is that you may you may say to the man, this is how I felt, but he
Mhm.
may not know what to do with that.
Mhm.
Right? And so then it's also letting him know what you need. Like, I would really need like, I'd love a hug right now. That's
Right.
what would feel
Yeah.
really good right now.
Yeah. And then the guy's like, "Oh, that's all you want? Oh, okay, honey. Of course." Like
Oink. Yeah.
it's like this epiphany, like, "Oh my God, that's what you need."
That's
And
it? I
but
thought you wanted me to fix it.
yeah, yeah. Or I thought you wanted to kill me because you're having an emotional response, and
Yeah.
we think that we cause it all, and then and that's the thing about that I try to teach men is I say men inside of that powerful woman that might be raging at you in front of you is a very vulnerable little girl inside. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if she's the woman at the head of the boardroom or the most beautiful statuesque woman you've ever seen.
Mhm.
It's all the same. Inside is a part of her that feels very, very vulnerable. And if you can see that part while she's raging at you, you're going to be way more robust. You're going to respond in a much more tuned and present way than if you just see the sort of the emotional chaos that you think is directed at you.
Oh, I love that you said that. It kind of goes back to that example I said in the beginning. Like, that woman was just scared to dance. Had nothing to do with her trying to shut him out, but he interpreted it that way as rejection.
Exactly.
And I see this happen all the time. And I mean, we're all little boys and little girls at heart. And when we have pain, it's that fight or flight response that we default to, and it
Right.
depends on our upbringing too, and how
Totally.
we deal with things. And so that's a beautiful way to look at it as the little girl, because often, like, really strong women, and this goes for both men and women, you listening, is that that's a lot of vibrato that protects her from getting hurt, because then she'll feel like she has control over something she's feeling very vulnerable with inside.
Yeah, it's funny, and I hate to say this next thing I'm going to say, but I will anyway. Some of the strongest women I've known, who I love and respect,
Hmm.
also they often fall apart in the most dramatic fashion as well. Like there's
Mm.
sort of there's the light and then there's the shadow, and so it's like those women even more need a man to be grounded, to sit in stillness and his own centeredness and make space for her emotional chaos. Like they need it even more, but it's that much harder. And I got to tell you, I mean, it's you guys can be scary to us. Like the strong, competent women, when you guys are upset with us, it's scary. Like our brains go
Yes.
haywire, and you talked about fight or flight. We go into what I write about in the book, and I have an entire chapter on this,
Hmm.
is into a state of threat. And that changes all of our perceptions. It cuts off all of our presence and creativity and heart connection and when we go into that state of threat. And so I really coach men, like before you even think about trying to figure out the behaviors,
Hmm.
we've got to work on your state of threat. And then I go through a number of ways that we do that in the book.
Oh, that's great. That was really great. I know we're coming to an end soon, but I'd love to hear, because you were starting to say, we do have a lot of men listening to this, and I also think it's helpful for women to hear what you're teaching men. What are some other things or skills that you instill in these men so that they can be that masculine leader?
Mm. Well, I'll mention the blueprint because I think that's the easiest way to answer your question.
Yeah.
The first element of the blueprint is respond versus react. So this is building that quality of stillness and groundedness in you
Hmm.
so that you, one, uh, responds to the world out of choice and intention rather than just in reactive fashion to every stimuli. And so the core of that is the embodiment and breathing practices that I teach men. I spent the entire morning teaching 3 men some of these practices, and they're telling me it's changing my life and it's changing my
Wow.
relationship. And it's not something that most men do. And it's a daily practice that I teach that makes all the difference. It really helps settle your nervous system. This is where you've got to address these things down at the nervous system level.
Hmm.
If you're up in the situation and the circumstances and the behaviors, then you're already behind the curve. And then I teach men about emotions, and then we talk about the state of threat. So that's how we address respond versus react. So first, I build that foundation of groundedness within the man, and men get a daily practice. I'll soon, maybe by the end of the summer, have an online course on daily practice,
Ooh.
or you can do it through my coaching. Um, so that's number one. Number two is called provide structure, and really, I think we've already talked about this.
Hmm.
it's bringing clarity and decisiveness to the couple. And so, the easy example I always use is, instead of saying, "Hey, honey, where should we go to vacation this year?" You say, "Hey, babe, I've been doing some thinking about this, and I picked out Croatia, Slovenia, and Italy as three places I would love to go. And I've looked up a few things, like cool things to do in each of these, and I looked up flights. And so I kind of have a sense for what's available to us. How did those three land for you?" And then now she's just like, "Oh, thank you for not throwing the whole world wide open and making me sort of think about like all the places we could go. You've given me three choices.
Mm.
You've simplified my world." Now she might come back and say, "I don't want to do any of those," and that's fine. But you've already simplified the world for her by doing some of the research, doing some of the pre-work, and then bringing her something that has a little bit of direction already set. And then you allow her free choice within that set of choices, or she can say, none of the above. So that's just like the most basic example. But providing structure and direction actually can apply when you fight.
Yeah.
We've all had fights with an intimate partner, and we've all started to give each other the cold shoulder. We're just so shut down, we don't even want to talk to them. So a man has two choices. He can wallow in that and wait for it to blow over, which is what we normally choose to do. Like,
You go in your cave. I know. I
yeah,
tell
and
women, don't go in their cave. Just don't go.
yeah. But for us
Shut
to
the
go in our
door.
cave, yeah. But for us to go in our cave and kind of wait for it to blow over doesn't create trust. It's not going to,
No.
guys. So I coach men. Hey, you provide the structure here. You go to your woman when you're both feeling shut down and say, "Baby, I know that was a rip roaring fight, and I know that we're both feeling shut down. Here's what I'd like to do. I want you to go, take a bath. I'm going to go walk around the block. In an hour, I want to sit down, and let's tell each other two things we appreciate about the other,
Yeah. Nice.
and then let's connect." And so that man has set some structure. He's applied leadership. He's being a leader in this regard. Hey, here's what I think we should do.
Hmm.
He is bringing some creativity and hopefully being effective at creating something that is going to open the two back up, and then they can reconnect and get through this, rather than just kind of going into their respective bubbles. So that's leadership, and that's setting direction and structure in the relationship.
Oh my God, ladies listening, doesn't that sound dreamy? I'm just saying, like that. That is what we want. And you men listening, it can be that simple. And it's like providing a language for, I think, both sexes. I always say that if you didn't grow up learning that language, it truly can feel foreign to you. And so, giving the tools and, like in your case, the blueprint for people so that they know exactly what to do, the script, and it's really just about practicing that, with your partner, with dates, so that you get into that flow. And it makes such a big difference in the interactions of for feminine and the masculine. So, oh my God, yes, this was amazing. Thank you for coming on today. Do you have any like parting words of wisdom you want to share? And also, please let us know how we can get your book and
Yeah,
find you.
I here's what I say to men and women alike. Look, it can be better. And
Hmm.
all of these, we're all chasing our tail on our relationship problems, but it really comes down to, do you have this polarity? Is there a heart connection? And that's what I'm really trying to teach men how to do. So men and women, it can be better. Um, Stop blaming each other. Do your own work. And for the
Mm.
men, it's kind of what's in the book. For the women, it's being more in your feminine, how to express your true heart, how to be expressive and radiant, and all of those things. So that's my parting wisdom. And for the men, do your work. You know,
Oh
buy,
yeah.
buy the book or buy somebody else's book.
Hmm.
Come coach with me or go find another male coach. It doesn't matter, but spend the time and money on it. Your life's going to get a lot better. Your life's going to get a lot better. So you can go on Amazon and get my book, The Masculine Indian Relationship. You can go on my website, gsyoungblood.com. I've got a lot of videos on there you can check out. You can see my coaching. Um, and I'll have the embodiment meditation practice online course, hopefully by the end of the summer.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that, and definitely check his stuff out. It's brilliant, and it really goes well with a lot of the feminine stuff that I teach as well. So again, thanks for joining me, GS.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Kimmy. This was fun.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today. Of course, this has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kimmy Seltzer. Remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want to know more, go to my site, kimmyseltzer.com. And if you're having a hard time receiving and you know it's affecting your dating life, you may be one of my dating archetypes. I'm just saying that I talk about in my brand new audio course. This may be why you suck at dating, where I will help you learn to get out of your head and into his bed. And this course is filled with a lot of juicy audio only episodes, which you can access right here. It's like listening to a podcast as you do my regular podcast. You know, you'll get all the recordings. There's some workbooks that go with it and guides and a whole lot more. And if you've ever thought, I wish I knew what I was doing wrong after failed dating experiences, and you have difficulties tapping into your feminine energy, you'll definitely want to get this for sure. Just click what you see in the show notes and get access to it right here on your favorite podcast platform. And stay tuned until next week with more tips on how to feel and look fabulous every day.